I took my time to tell you how I feel. Just because I took so long don't mean that it isn't real.
Hi, my name is Joseph Morocha, and welcome to the website pchlawsuit.com. I filed a collective action complaint in federal court against Palos Community Hospital on behalf of myself and similarly situated former and present employees of Palos Community Hospital. The complaint in federal court alleges discrimination and retaliation at Palos Community Hospital is systematic, pervasive, and the Palos Community Hospital Human Resource Department is ineffective at resolving complaints of discrimination and retaliation. As a result, older workers fail to lodge a complaint with Human Resources because they recognize the futility in doing so, and those that do face retaliation. Sister Wright was the president and CEO of Palos Community Hospital, the person responsible in the final decision upholding my wrongful termination. Sister Wright carries the weight of responsibility for this lawsuit being filed in federal court against Palos Community Hospital. I find it no surprise she is no longer the president or CEO of Palos Community Hospital. Management at Palos Community Hospital is a product of the leadership of Sister Wright. Her management style and what is an accepted way to do business has led Palos Community Hospital employees down a road that has led to the deprivation of the protection and rights provided in the Palos Community Hospital's very own human resource policies by the very people who've been entrusted to protect the employee rights at Palos Community Hospital. Throughout the months leading up to my termination, I gave Palos Community Hospital numerous opportunities to do the right thing, to be fair, and to follow policy. In discussions with management, by letters, by emails, and following hospital policy, I filed a complaint in Human Resources and with the EEOC. In each correspondence between Palos Community Hospital and myself, it was an opportunity for Palos Community Hospital to do the right thing. It is with a confidence and certainty that I have moved forward with this complaint in federal court. The outrageous actions taken against me, the false statements, and a total disregard for any due process have become an accepted way to do business at Palos Community Hospital. The facts and the documentation are overwhelming in this case. Mr. David Manchester has been appointed acting president and CEO of Palos Community Hospital. Mr. Manchester, you have an opportunity to make a difference. By your actions, you can make a change in what is the accepted way to do business at Palos Community Hospital and how employees are treated. For too long, fear has been instilled in employees who have cowered under intimidating supervisors, afraid to lodge a complaint with Human Resources because they recognize the futility, and those that do face retaliation. To sin by silence when we should protest makes cowards of men. Mr. Manchester, I put this challenge before you. Don't be silent and don't coward. Man up and make the changes to what is the accepted way to do business at Palos Community Hospital. Demand of your management to treat employees fairly, end discrimination, retaliation, and intimidation. Mr. Manchester, there are over 3,000 employees. All eyes are focused on how you will move forward with employment practices. The website, pchlawsuit.com, has received over 10,000 views to date. Employees are interested in issues that affect the hospital and their employment. 2 years after my termination, and I am still receiving emails with horror stories of discrimination, wrongful termination, and a hostile work environment working at Palos Community Hospital. Mr. Manchester, my complaint in federal court aside, I am making you a sincere offer to meet with you. I am not alone as a victim alleging outrageous actions of discrimination, retaliation, and that a hostile work environment is ongoing at Palos Community Hospital. Mr. Manchester, together we can review and discuss the voluminous emails of senior employees using sick time returning to work to find their jobs have been eliminated, then they're terminated. Senior employees retiring sooner than they wished because of hostile and degrading treatment. Senior employees wrongfully accused and terminated. Senior employees bullied into quitting. Employees going to work in fear of the hostile work environment. Mr. Manchester, you need to be made aware of the distress, the intimidation, the fear, the working conditions the employees are subjected. How about if you and I work together to make Palos Community Hospital a better place to work for everyone? Mr. Manchester, read the emails with me. Employees' lives have been ruined. Employees lost their livelihood, their hospitalization, their benefits. 20, 30 years of dedicated service to Palos Community Hospital. Fired when they should be rewarded, taken care of, given the respect they deserve for their years of service. Let's look at the big picture. The hospital, a Catholic hospital, is an entity of its own. It's a corporation. Nobody owns the hospital. There are no shareholders expecting dividends. It's a building. Palos Community Hospital has over $3 billion in revenue. St. George, the parent corporation, has over $4 billion in revenue. Palos Community Hospital has over $680 million in cash and assets. Palos Community Hospital, in the last report that I could find, made over $15 million profit. Even if you only got a meager 2% annual return on $680 million, that would be another $16.6 million annually. That totals $31 million a year profit belonging to nobody. It belongs to a building. I don't understand it. I can't get my head around it. Intimidation, retaliation, fear, a hostile work environment, and nobody benefits. Palos Community Hospital is a building with an accepted way to do business by doing harm for harm's sake. That's the definition of malice. You know, for over 20 years they gave a Christmas bonus. Employees always received a Christmas bonus, and on past experience relied on the Christmas bonus. Then one year, around 2003, the hospital didn't give a Christmas bonus. Many employees without the Christmas bonus couldn't afford to buy presents. Most people are struggling just to pay their bills. Those employees had no Christmas that year. Yes, it probably would have cost the hospital about $6 million. But what about the $680 million the hospital has in cash and assets? What about the $31 million in annual income? Nobody benefited. PCH is a building. The same thing with taking away half the sick pay payout from employees. It takes 7 years and 3 months of banking sick time to get to the point where the hospital would pay out a year of sick time. And employees struggle for over 7 years to finally get the sick payout, and it is unilaterally decided to cut the pay in half. You made a deal with the employees and arbitrarily reneged. Who benefited? Nobody. A building. How wealthy, how much money does a non-for-profit building need? A building is more important than the employees? Mr. Manchester, you have your work ahead of you. My offer stands to meet with you and to work with you to make Palos Community Hospital a better place and to reform the accepted way to do business at Palos Community Hospital. After I filed this complaint in court, there has been a change in my status. So you can appreciate how callous Palos Community Hospital is regarding older employees and employees with serious health conditions. I'll tell my tale of woe. I'm not crying. It's facts. For 3 months prior to my being terminated, I was put through extreme and outrageous actions taken against me by Palos Community Hospital, with no concern by the hospital how their actions would affect me. Their actions triggered an underlying medical condition I was unaware I had. Saying the hospital's actions were outrageous, I realize is a very serious allegation. My documentation and the facts are overwhelming, showing how extreme and outrageous the hospital's actions were. During the 3 months prior to my termination, the intimidation and pressure I was under triggered extreme pain and numerous physical complications. The pain I worked with was so extreme, I sent an email to my boss, Ken Lash, telling him I was in pain and needed time off to go to the doctor. He never responded or contacted me. He had Diane's from Human Resources fire me. He never spoke to me. I worked for the man for 10 years. I thought he would have at least asked if I was okay, not just have me fired. The short of the story is, I was diagnosed at Palos Community Hospital by a brain MRI that I had an extensive brain disease. The neurologist I saw told me my entire brain was cluttered with lesions. I received an MRI report 4 days before I was wrongfully terminated. During the 3 months prior to my termination, I worked around my health problems. I was fearful of losing my job. I saw systematically intentional action taken against every other management employee in my department when they were around 60 years old, the same age as me, and the pretextual actions taken against me. After the meeting, when I was terminated, I did have Diane Plains from Human Resources read the MRI report showing I had an extensive brain disease. After my being fired, for the next 3 months I followed policy and made 3 appeals to my termination, with Sister Wright being the final appeal. Sister Wright upheld my being fired. The hospital was aware I had a serious health condition. I told Human Resources. I do not want to go into all my complications. I have issues with the brain. It's not good. I have an MRI of an extensive brain disease, an MRI of my shoulder, my right shoulder, showing I have a near full thickness rotator cuff tear. I have an MRI of my left shoulder that shows it's worse than my right shoulder. A long medical term, but it amounts to a bent bone and an impingement. I have muscle atrophy in my right shoulder, most likely a result of the brain disease. Now I was fired, lost my livelihood, hospitalization, and disability insurance. I saw no less than 8 doctors. It was determined I was disabled when I was employed by Palos Hospital. Prior to being terminated by Palos Hospital, I was sick and disabled. I can still perform my job as an electrical supervisor at Palos Community Hospital with reasonable accommodations. I'm not an invalid. As an employee of Palos Community Hospital, they have a duty to make reasonable accommodations for a disability. The only accommodations I would need would be to take breaks or reasonable time off when required. I have been on Social Security disability and have been determined by the Social Security Administration to be disabled since April 1st, 2011, based on the date of my MRI of my brain, which was 4 days before I was fired. Given my age and my disability, being able to find other employment is not realistic. Through my attorney, a letter was sent to Palos Community Hospital explaining my being disabled while still an employee. I requested to be reinstated to my job with reasonable accommodations. If not reinstated, for the hospital to pay me the $16,800 I had in sick time, and to pay me back the pension money they took from my retirement account, and for me to receive the long-term disability insurance benefit I earned as an employee. Palos Community Hospital refused. Palos Community Hospital knows I was disabled when they fired me. At very least, my termination should be changed to sick on disability. By changing my status to sick, I would have been on sick pay till it ran out. I would then go on vacation pay. I had 7 weeks vacation banked. That would extend my final employment date to after the 1st of July, and I would have kept the money, over $2,000, they took directly out of my retirement account, because you have to work 6 months in the year to keep the employer's share of the contribution for each year. I would then be on long-term disability, a benefit I earned as an employee. How callous can a non-for-profit Catholic organization be? You know I was sick. You know I was disabled before I was terminated. You have fought to prevent me from receiving unemployment compensation. You refused to reinstate me with accommodations. You denied me my sick pay. I have no hospitalization when I need it most. You took money directly out of my pension account. You took my livelihood, and I'm being denied long-term disability insurance that I earned as an employee. Mr. Manchester, I see this as a financial exploitation of a disabled person. Palos Community Hospital was in a position of trust with a person with a disability. Palos Community Hospital knowingly obtained control over the property, sick time and pension funds of a person with a disability and breached their fiduciary relationship. Mr. Manchester, do a web search and look up Illinois Statute Section 16-1-3. Pay attention to where it states, "It shall not be a defense to financial exploitation of a person with a disability that the accused reasonably believed that the victim was not a person with a disability." Mr. Manchester, as president of Palos Community Hospital, you have an opportunity to show the 3,000 employees how you will lead as the president of Palos Community Hospital. To not sin by silence, but to take action, to do the right thing. Mr. Manchester, as president of Palos Community Hospital, you will be involved in decisions regarding the complaint filed in federal court. Do me a favor, look at the documentation, review all the videos I posted on this website, then make your decision. What are you going to do about Marty Barron, Ken Lash, and Mary Dendenchenko? As Vice President of Human Resources, she holds the responsibility for what she allowed to happen. I will be doing another video on Palos Community Hospital's proposed agreed protective order for handling of confidential information, which Palos Community Hospital is trying to put a court-ordered gag order on me. I believe any deed done in the dark must be brought to light, and will continue to provide information on this website regarding the federal complaint and the actions of Palos Community Hospital.